I returned from my trip without telling anyone. I wanted to surprise Letitia for Christmas, catch that look on her face when I walked through the door 5 days early. The taxi pulled up to our house just after 8 in the evening, and even from the street, I could see every window lit up like a damn festival. Christmas lights wrapped around the palm trees in the front yard, and through the glass, I spotted our tree, the big one Letitia always insisted on, glowing in the living room. Music and laughter drifted out into the warm December air. A party? Letitia hadn't mentioned anything about a party. I paid the driver and grabbed my suitcase, keys already in hand. My heart was doing that stupid thing it still did after 40 years of marriage, that anticipation of seeing her, of being home. But as I got closer to the front door, something felt off. The laughter was too loud, too carefree. And I recognized one of those voices. Raul! My son was supposed to be in New York with Bianca and her family. What the hell was he doing here? I unlocked the door, slowly, quietly. The suitcase stayed in the entryway as I moved toward the sounds, toward the living room where all that noise was coming from. And then I saw it. Saw everything. And understood why Letitia's text messages had gotten so strange these past 2 weeks. The living room was packed. Raul stood by the bar cart, laughing at something, a glass of my 30-year scotch in his hand. Bianca sat on the couch, legs crossed, looking like she owned the place. And there were her parents, Richard and Patricia Morrison, making themselves comfortable in the chairs Letitia and I had picked out together in Miami 15 years ago. They were celebrating something, toasting, acting like this was their house, their Christmas, their victory. But what stopped me cold was the figure I could see through the glass doors leading to the balcony. Letitia sat alone out there, a wine glass in her hand, staring at the Christmas lights in the garden. Even from where I stood, I could see her shoulders shaking. She was crying. Not one person in that living room had noticed. They were too busy enjoying themselves. I stayed in the shadows of the hallway, watching, listening, and I understood everything without hearing a single word. But to understand how we got here, how a man who built a $40 million empire came home to find his family invaded, I need to take you back 3 weeks, back to when I still believed we were a normal family with normal problems. My name is Pedro Gonzalez. I'm 64 years old, and I own 6 boutique hotels scattered across the Florida Keys. It took me 30 years to build them from nothing, from the days when I was a 25-year-old Cuban immigrant kid with big dreams and exactly $300 in my pocket. People see the success now and think it came easy. They don't see the years Letitia and I spent cleaning rooms ourselves because we couldn't afford staff. They don't remember her manning the front desk until 2 in the morning while I fixed broken air conditioners and argued with suppliers who thought they could cheat the new guy. We built this together. Every hotel, every dollar, every goddamn piece of it. Letitia is 60 now. We met when I was 29 and she was 25, working as a bookkeeper for a restaurant in Key West. She took one look at my business plan, scribbled on napkins, half in Spanish, and said, "This is either crazy or brilliant. I can't tell which." 3 months later, we were married. A year after that, she quit her job to keep the books for our first property, a rundown 12-room place that everyone said would never work. That first hotel now generates $3 million a year. We have one son, Raul. He's 34, and he has a degree in architecture from a top school, University of Miami, full ride, because the kid really did have talent. Still does, probably. But talent and work ethic are different things, and Raul never learned that second part. After graduation, he did okay for a few months at a firm in Miami. But then came the complaints about difficult clients. The market was tough, he said. The senior architects took all the good projects. He needed time to build a network, find the right opportunity. The right opportunity never seemed to come. 6 months turned into a year. 1 year turned into 3. And somewhere in there, I started sending him money every month, just to help out, I told myself. Just until he got on his feet. $15,000 every single month for the past 5 years. Then, 4 years ago, he met Bianca Morrison at some charity gala in Miami. She was 28, polished, educated, from what Raul called old New York money. Her family had that kind of wealth that didn't need to announce itself, or so it seemed at the time. The wedding was at a vineyard upstate, 300 guests, probably cost me close to 200 grand. I didn't care about the money. I cared about my son being happy, and he seemed happy, at least at first. But after the wedding, things shifted. Raul and Bianca moved to New York, to a place on the Upper East Side that cost more per month than most people make in a year. Visits home became rare. Phone calls got shorter. There was always some reason they couldn't make it down for holidays. Bianca's family needed them, work obligations, the twins were sick. The twins, Isabella and Sophia, 5 years old now, and I'd seen them in person maybe a dozen times since they were born. Most of what I knew about my granddaughters came from Facebook photos. Every time Letitia brought it up, how much she missed them, how it hurt not seeing them grow up, Raul had an answer ready. "Mom, don't be dramatic, we're busy, we'll visit when we can." They could never visit, but they could always call when they needed money. "Dad, there's this investment opportunity. It's a sure thing. I just need $50,000 to get in on it." "Dad, Bianca's mom had a medical emergency. We need $30,000. We'll pay you back." "Dad, I know this is a lot to ask, but could I get an advance on my inheritance? There's this property deal, once-in-a-lifetime thing." And I, like the fool I was, always sent it. Because he was my son, my only son. And that's what fathers do, right? They help their children. Letitia saw it differently. She'd sit at the kitchen table, going through our accounts, and shake her head. "Pedro, he's 34 years old. When does the helping stop and the enabling begin?" "He's figuring things out," I'd say. "For 5 years, with a master's degree and no job?" I didn't have a good answer for that. So I'd kiss her forehead and change the subject, and she'd let me, because Letitia understood something I was too stubborn to admit. Sometimes love makes you stupid. This past November, I decided to take a trip to Europe. Alone. Letitia had commitments with the charitable foundation she ran, something about a fundraising gala she'd been planning for months, and honestly, I needed space. Time to think about the business, about expansion possibilities in the Caribbean, about a future that felt increasingly uncertain. "How long will you be gone?" Letitia asked, helping me pack in our bedroom. 3, maybe 4 weeks. I need to visit some properties, meet with potential investors, explore some options." She folded one of my shirts with that precise way she had, smoothing out invisible wrinkles. "That's a long time." "I'll miss you every day," I said, meaning it. "And I'll miss you." She looked up at me, and something in her eyes made me pause. Worry? Fear? It was gone before I could identify it. "But you'll be back before Christmas, right? You promised." "Before Christmas, I promise." I left on November 14th. For the first 2 weeks, everything seemed normal. Letitia sent me messages every day, photos of the house, updates on the hotels, little mundane things about her day. We'd video call in the evenings, my morning, and talk about nothing important, the weather, what she had for dinner, how the new general manager at the Islamorada property was working out. But then in week 3, something changed. The messages got shorter, less frequent. When we did talk, Letitia seemed distracted, like she was listening for something in the background. Her responses came a beat too slow, like she had to remember what we were talking about. "Are you okay?" I asked during one call. It was early December, and I was in London, sitting in a hotel room that cost more per night than our first apartment. "Yes, of course. Why?" Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "You sound different, distant." "It's your imagination, Pedro. I'm just tired." But my gut, that same gut that told me which properties to buy, which investors to trust, was screaming that something was wrong. I tried to pin it down, asked more questions. "How's the foundation work going? Is everything okay with the hotels? Have you heard from Raul?" That last question made her pause. Just for a second, but I caught it. "Raul's fine," she said. "Everything's fine. You should focus on your meetings. I'll see you in a week." Except I couldn't focus. For the next 3 days, that conversation played in my head. Something was wrong. Letitia was lying to me. Not about anything specific, maybe, but she was holding something back, and the more I thought about it, the more anxious I became. So on December 20th, I made a decision. I booked a flight home, 5 days earlier than planned, and I told no one, not Letitia, not my assistant, no one. I wanted to surprise her. More than that, I wanted to see with my own eyes what the hell was going on. I landed in Key West on the afternoon of December 23rd. The airport was packed with holiday travelers, families with kids in Santa hats, couples holding hands. I grabbed a taxi and gave the driver our address, that big house on the water we'd built specifically for Letitia 10 years ago. Her dream house, she'd called it. Big windows overlooking the ocean, a garden she'd personally designed, enough space for grandchildren to visit and run around, grandchildren who never came. It was almost 8 when we pulled up to the house. Every light was on. The Christmas decorations Letitia always insisted on were up. Lights in the trees, wreaths on the windows, that inflatable Santa by the front door that I thought was tacky, but she loved. And I could hear it from the street. Music, laughter, voices. A lot of voices. I paid the driver and stood on the sidewalk for a moment, suitcase in hand, trying to process what I was seeing. A party? Letitia hated parties, especially unplanned ones. Who the hell was in our house? I walked up to the front door, key ready. But as I got closer, I heard something that made my blood run cold. Raoul's laugh. That distinct sound I'd know anywhere, the laugh he'd had since he was a kid. Raoul was supposed to be in New York, with Bianca, with her family. They'd told Letitia at least, that they were spending Christmas there this year. Bianca's parents were hosting. Too complicated to travel with the twins, so what the hell was my son doing in my house? I unlocked the door as quietly as I could, left my suitcase in the entryway and moved toward the sound of voices, toward the living room. And that's when I saw them. All of them. Raoul stood by the bar cart I kept stocked for guests, pouring himself a generous glass of scotch. My scotch, the 30-year Macallan that cost $400 a bottle. Bianca lounged on the couch, scrolling through her phone with one hand and holding a wine glass with the other. And there were Richard and Patricia Morrison, Bianca's parents, sitting in our chairs like they'd lived here for years. They were toasting something, celebrating, and through the glass doors to the balcony, I could see Letitia, my Letitia, sitting alone in the dark, illuminated only by the Christmas lights in the garden, staring at nothing with tears running down her face. Not one person inside had noticed her. They were too busy laughing, enjoying themselves, acting like they owned the place. I stayed in the shadows, watching. And then I heard it. The conversation that explained everything. "Finally," Bianca said, her voice carrying that particular tone of satisfaction I'd only heard a few times before. "We have the house to ourselves. No Pedro here micromanaging everything." Raoul's voice came next, weak as always. "Babe, lower your voice. Mom might hear you." "So what?" Bianca laughed, actually laughed. "Your father's in Europe, probably with some mistress. You think he cares about us? About your mother out there crying?" Every muscle in my body went rigid. I wanted to walk in there, wanted to grab my son by his collar and throw him out of my house. But something, instinct maybe, or 40 years of business negotiations, told me to wait, to listen, to gather information before I acted. "Just leave her," Bianca continued. "She'll get used to the new reality." Richard Morrison's voice cut in, authoritative in that way rich men think they're entitled to be. "Speaking of reality, son, let's discuss specifics. This property is worth $25 million easily. You're paying what? $5,000 a month for that shoebox in Manhattan?" $5,800, Raoul muttered. "Absurd." Richard took a sip of something, probably my bourbon. "You're the only heir. This house should be yours anyway. Why wait decades?" "My father's only 64, Raoul said. "He could live another 20, 30 years. "Exactly." That was Bianca again. "Do you want to wait until you're 50 to finally have the life you deserve? The life we deserve?" I moved closer, staying in the shadows by the hallway entrance. I could see them now through the archway. Raoul sitting on the arm of the couch, Bianca next to him, her parents across from them in our chairs. A family meeting, planning something. Planning what exactly? "I don't know," Raoul said, and for a moment he almost sounded like my son again, uncertain, looking for guidance. "This feels wrong. Dad worked hard for—" "Your father," Richard interrupted, leaning forward. "Can't take it with him when he's gone. Raoul, I've been handling family estates for 40 years, trust me. The smart children secure their inheritance early, through proper channels, of course. Estate planning, tax protection, asset transfer." Patricia Morrison spoke up for the first time, her voice gentler than her husband's, but somehow more dangerous. "And poor Letitia, all alone in this enormous house. It must be so hard for her. Maybe she needs to hear that family is here for her, that she doesn't have to carry this burden by herself." "What burden?" Raoul asked. Maintaining a property this size, the loneliness, the isolation. Patricia's voice dripped with false sympathy. We could suggest something cozier for her, closer to the grandchildren. An apartment in New York maybe, or a small condo here in Key West, somewhere she'd feel less overwhelmed. My hands clenched into fists. They were discussing my wife, my Letitia, like she was a problem to be solved, an obstacle to be removed. And the house? Bianca prompted. Would naturally transfer to Raoul, Richard said smoothly. For the family, for the children, it makes perfect sense. Dad will never agree to that, Raoul said, but his voice lacked conviction. That's why we work through Letitia, Richard explained like he was teaching a child. She's vulnerable right now. Pedro's gone. She's alone. She's emotional. Raoul, you spend more time with her, support her, be the son she needs, and gradually she starts to depend on you, on us. When she's ready, when she trusts us completely, we present the idea as a gift to her. Less stress, more family time, a fresh start. And if Dad objects? Raoul asked. We already have the documents prepared, Bianca said. I could hear the smile in her voice. Attorney in Miami drafted everything. Transfer of deed, trust arrangements, the works. We just need signatures. From both of them, Raoul said. From Letitia, Bianca corrected. We present it as something Pedro already approved. We tell her he wants to protect the asset, minimize estate taxes, whatever sounds plausible. She signs, we file the paperwork, and by the time Pedro gets back, it's done, legal and binding. My vision actually blurred for a second. They had documents. They'd gone to a lawyer. This wasn't some idle fantasy. This was an actual conspiracy, planned and ready to execute. And if Pedro comes back before we're ready? Patricia asked. He won't, Bianca said confidently. He's not due back until the 28th. We have 5 more days. That's plenty of time to get Letitia's signature. 5 days. I was supposed to have 5 more days in Europe, and in those 5 days they were going to steal my house, manipulate my wife into signing away her home. After we secure the house, Richard continued, we work on the business, the hotels. Pedro's getting older. 64 is hardly young. With the right legal pressure, we can argue he needs help managing such an extensive operation. Raoul, as his only son and heir, would be the natural choice. Medical conservatorship, Patricia added. If we can establish that Pedro's judgment is compromised, stress, age, diminished capacity, the courts will grant Raoul authority over the business decisions. My father's not incompetent, Raoul protested weakly. Of course not, Richard said smoothly. But with the right documentation, the right medical experts, well, let's just say these things can be arranged. I pulled my phone from my pocket and started recording. Video, audio, everything. I kept the camera pointed at the floor so the light wouldn't give me away, but the microphone picked up every word. This feels like we're going too fast, Raoul said. What if Dad notices something? What if Mom tells him? Your mother won't tell him anything, Bianca said dismissively. She's terrified of upsetting you. Every time we mention the house, she just wrings her hands and says she needs to talk to Pedro first. She's weak, Raoul. We can work with that. She's my mother, Raoul said, but there was no strength behind it. And she'll still be your mother, Bianca countered. Just in a smaller house, with less responsibility, and we'll have what should have been yours from the beginning. Tomorrow, Richard said, standing up. I could hear him moving, probably toward the bar cart. Tomorrow morning, we present Letitia with the documents. We tell her Pedro approved everything before he left. We explain it's just a formality, protecting family assets. And she signs. What if she doesn't? Raoul asked. She will, Patricia said with certainty, because you'll tell her it's what you need, what your daughters need, and Letitia would do anything for her grandchildren. That's when I saw movement on the balcony. Letitia stood up, setting down her wine glass with shaking hands. She'd heard them. Of course she'd heard them. She was right outside those glass doors. How long had she been listening to them plot against her? I watched her walk down the balcony steps into the garden, disappearing into the darkness. None of them noticed. They were too busy celebrating their pending victory, drinking my liquor, planning the theft of everything I'd built. I backed away silently, moving through the house toward the side entrance. I found Letitia in the garden, standing by the hibiscus bushes she'd planted herself, her whole body shaking. Letitia, I whispered. She spun around, and the look on her face nearly broke me. Shock, then disbelief, then relief so profound she actually sobbed. Pedro? But you're not. You're supposed to be. Shh. I pulled her close, and she buried her face in my chest. Don't say anything. We need to leave. Right now. Quietly. But trust me. I took her hand and led her through the garden toward the side gate, the one that opened onto the street where I'd had the taxi drop me. My car was parked down the block where I'd left it weeks ago. We could slip away, and they'd never know we'd been here. The car was a welcome sight. I unlocked it and helped Letitia into the passenger seat, then walked around to the driver's side, keeping my eyes on the house. No movement in the windows. They were still inside, still celebrating. I started the engine and pulled away from the curb, driving slowly at first, then faster once we'd turned the corner. Pedro, what's happening? Letitia's voice shook. How are you here? You're supposed to be in London. I came back early, surprise. The word tasted bitter. Letitia, how long has this been going on? She started crying again, harder this time. 3 weeks. They showed up 3 weeks ago, right after you left. Said they wanted to spend Christmas at the beach, family time. I was so happy. I thought maybe Raul was finally making an effort. But then what? The comments started, little things at first. Mom, this house is so big, don't you get lonely? Then more direct. Have you thought about downsizing? And finally, yesterday, they said they'd talked to a lawyer, that they had documents ready, that I just needed to sign. And you said? I said I needed to talk to you first, that I couldn't make a decision like that without consulting you. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. That's when Bianca exploded. Called you controlling, said I was weak, that I was wasting an opportunity. And tonight they threw that party like they'd already won, like I didn't matter. I pulled into the parking lot of my newest hotel, the one overlooking the marina. We kept the presidential suite empty for situations exactly like this, when we needed privacy, when we needed space to think. Inside the suite, with the door locked and the curtains drawn, Letitia finally fell apart. I held her while she cried, feeling rage build in my chest with every sob. I'm sorry, she kept saying. I should have called you immediately. I should have told you, but I didn't want to bother you while you were working. And I thought maybe I was overreacting. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe... Stop. I cupped her face in my hands. You have nothing to apologize for. Nothing. Letitia, they've been pressuring you for weeks, ganging up on you. This is not your fault. But what do we do now? Now? I pulled out my phone and showed her the video I'd recorded. Now we act, carefully, strategically, because Letitia, they made a mistake. They conspired in my house thinking I was thousands of miles away, and I have every word on video. She watched the footage, her expression changing from hurt to anger to something cold I'd rarely seen in 40 years of marriage. They planned this, she whispered, for weeks, maybe months. Yes. Our son, our own son, planned to steal from us. Yes. She looked up at me, and I saw the moment she made her decision. The moment my gentle, patient wife became someone else, someone harder. Then we stop them, she said. Damn right we do. But first, I need you to tell me everything. Every conversation, every threat, everything they've said and done for the past 3 weeks. Letitia took a breath and started talking. And with every detail, every manipulation, every cruel comment they'd made, my plan took shape. But then she said something that changed everything. Pedro, there's something else, something I haven't told you yet. She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. You know how I keep that audio journal, recording my thoughts every night? Of course. For the past 2 weeks, I've been leaving my phone recording during the day, hidden in the living room. I needed evidence in case something happened, in case they tried to say I agreed to something I didn't. Her hands trembled as she opened her voice memos app. I have hours of recordings, their entire plan. In their own words, everything. I stared at her, and despite everything, despite the betrayal, the conspiracy, the hurt, I felt something like pride surge through me. Letitia Gonzalez, I said slowly, you are absolutely brilliant. She managed a small smile through her tears. I learned from the best. Send me those files, all of them, and then you're going to stay here in this suite, rest, and let me handle everything. What are you going to do? I stood up and grabbed my phone. Justice. Cold, calculated, irreversible justice. And when I'm done, Raul will understand exactly what it means to betray his family. It was 10:30 when I made my first call. James Cooper, my attorney, lived in Miami, about 3 hours away if he drove fast. Pedro, it's almost 11 o'clock. What's emergency? I need documents tonight. Can you do it? A pause. What kind of documents? Complete revocation of any power of attorney I gave Raul. New will. Everything goes to Leticia in an irrevocable trust. After her, it all goes to charity. Raul gets nothing. Disinheritance with documented cause, conspiracy to defraud, coercion, attempted theft. Jesus, Pedro, that's nuclear. What happened? I'll send you evidence. Video, audio, the works. James, I need this filed before sunrise. I don't care who you have to wake up at the county clerk's office. That's, Pedro, it's Christmas Eve tomorrow. Nobody's going to triple your normal rate, plus a $50,000 bonus, but I need it done. Tonight. Another pause. Give me 2 hours. I'll have everything ready. Second call. Roberto Martinez, a locksmith who'd worked on my hotels for years. Roberto, I need every lock in my house changed tonight, plus a new security system, cameras, motion sensors, direct line to police. Only my wife and I get keys. Pedro, man, it's Christmas. Triple rate and a $5,000 bonus. But you start in 2 hours and finish before sunrise. I'll be there. Third call. This one was harder. Officer Daniel Hayes and I went back 15 years. He'd handled security for several of my properties, and I considered him a friend. Daniel, I need a favor. There are people illegally occupying my house. Illegally? Pedro, who, my son's family, and his in-laws. They've been coercing my wife, attempting to defraud us out of our home. I have evidence, video, audio, documentation, and I need them removed tonight. The silence stretched long enough that I thought the connection had dropped. Pedro, Daniel finally said, that's your son, your family. They stopped being family when they conspired to steal from us. Daniel, I have Leticia on recording, crying because they've been terrorizing her for weeks. I have them on video plotting to forge documents, manipulate her into signing, claim my wife is incompetent. This is fraud. This is elder abuse. And I will not tolerate it for 1 more minute. You have proof of all this? I'll send it to you right now. Then, okay, I'll send a unit. But Pedro, this is going to get ugly. It's already ugly. Now we're just making it legal. I sent him the files, the videos, Leticia's recordings, everything. Then I sat back in the hotel suite, watching Leticia sleep fitfully on the bed, and I started planning. By midnight, James called back. I have everything. But Pedro, we need to talk about... No talking. Just file it. I'll meet you at your office in an hour. The drive to Miami was a blur. James had his office lit up, documents spread across his desk like battle plans. It's all here, he said, looking exhausted. Revocation of power of attorney. Raul has no authority to act on your behalf, effective immediately. New will. Leticia gets everything in a lifetime trust. She's the sole beneficiary and trustee. After her passing, it all goes to the charities you specified. And Raul? Receives nothing. I've documented every reason. Conspiracy to defraud, coercion of a beneficiary, attempted theft through deceit, fundamental betrayal of family trust. It's all legally justified. Pedro, this is ironclad. He can't contest it. Good. And the house? Transferred into the irrevocable trust with Leticia as trustee. Raul can't claim it now or ever. Perfect. File everything. I don't care what it costs. By 4 a.m, Roberto called. All done. New locks, new codes, cameras everywhere. Any attempt to enter without the right code triggers the alarm and sends live feed to police. You're a good man, Roberto. At 5, James confirmed. Filed. It's official. Everything's in Leticia's name. Raul is completely disinherited. I stood outside my house as the sun began to rise on Christmas Eve, watching the windows where my son and his conspirators slept in beds they thought they'd soon own. Officer Hayes pulled up with 2 patrol cars, 4 officers total. You sure about this? He asked one more time. I looked at my house, the house I'd built for Leticia, the life we'd created together, and thought about my wife crying on that balcony while our son celebrated inside. Completely sure, I said. Let's get them out. I knocked on my own front door. Hard. Authoritative, the kind of knock that says police, that says consequences, that says everything is about to change. Inside, I heard confusion, footsteps, muffled voices, then Raoul's voice, thick with sleep. "Who the hell is knocking at 6 in the morning?" "Key West Police," Officer Hayes called out. "Open the door." More confusion, panic maybe. I heard Bianca's voice, sharp and frightened. "Police? Why would—" The door swung open. Raoul stood there in pajama pants and a wrinkled t-shirt, hair sticking up, eyes barely open. He saw the patrol cars first, then the officers in uniform, and finally, he saw me. His face went through a whole spectrum in about 3 seconds. Confusion, disbelief, recognition, then fear. "Dad?" The word came out like a question, like he wasn't sure I was real. "What are you? You're supposed to be in Europe." "Raul Gonzalez," Officer Hayes stepped forward, and I felt a dark satisfaction watching my son's face pale. "We have a report of illegal occupation of this property and attempted fraud. We need you and all occupants to vacate immediately." "Illegal occupation?" Raoul's voice cracked. "This is my parents' house. We're visiting. Dad, what the hell is going on?" I met his eyes, those eyes I'd looked into when he was born, when I'd taught him to swim, when I'd sent him off to college, and I felt absolutely nothing. "You're here without the owner's permission," I said, my voice cold enough to frost the air. "You've been coercing my wife to sign fraudulent documents. I have evidence, video, audio, testimony. These officers are here to escort you out." "Dad, this is insane. We're family." "Family?" I pulled out my phone and hit play on the video. Their voices filled the early morning air. Bianca's. "Finally, we have the house to ourselves." Richard's. "This property is worth $25 million. Patricia's. "Poor Letitia, all alone in this enormous house." Raoul's face went from pale to gray. "Family doesn't conspire to steal," I continued, pocketing my phone. "Family doesn't spend weeks terrorizing a vulnerable mother. Family doesn't plan to forge signatures and claim their parents are incompetent." I stepped closer, and he actually backed up. "You're not my family, Raoul. You're criminals who happen to share my blood, and you're leaving. Now." Bianca appeared behind him, wrapped in a silk robe that probably cost more than Roberto made in a month. Her hair was perfect even at 6 in the morning, her makeup smudged just enough to make her look vulnerable instead of calculated. You can't do this," she said, but her voice shook. "Raoul has rights, inheritance rights. You can't just—" "Raoul has no rights." I pulled the court documents from my jacket and held them up. "Filed at 4 this morning. Everything, the house, the hotels, all of it, is now in an irrevocable trust with Letitia as the sole beneficiary. After her, it goes to charity. Raoul inherits exactly nothing." I watched the information hit her like a physical blow. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. "You can't do that," she whispered. That's his birthright." "Birthright?" I laughed, and it came out harsh. "Being born doesn't entitle you to shit, Bianca. You want something, you earn it, you build it. You sure as hell don't conspire to steal it." Richard Morrison emerged from the guest bedroom, trying to regain some dignity despite his bathrobe and slippers. "Now, Pedro, let's be reasonable adults about this. Surely we can discuss—" "There's nothing to discuss." I gestured to the patrol cars. "You have 30 minutes to pack personal items only. Clothes, toiletries, nothing else. Then you're gone. And if any of you ever contact Letitia again, if you pressure her, if you so much as send her a text message, I will press criminal charges, conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted theft by deception, elder abuse. With the evidence I have, you'll spend years fighting it, years, and you'll lose every single battle." "This is abuse." Bianca's voice rose to a shriek. "You're an old man who can't handle that his son deserves a life. You're controlling. "I'm protecting my wife," I cut her off. "That woman you spent 3 weeks terrorizing. That woman who cried herself to sleep every night while you planned to steal her home. You want to talk about abuse? Let's show these officers the recordings of you calling her weak, calling her stupid, threatening to have her declared incompetent." Patricia Morrison finally spoke up, and this time there was no gentle manipulation in her voice, just desperation. "Pedro, please. We have nowhere to go. I'm sick. The medical bills. We lost everything 6 years ago when Richard's firm collapsed. We're broke. We need—" And there it was, the truth beneath all the scheming. "You should have come to me honestly," I said, and I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Asked for help like adults instead of plotting like thieves, but you made your choice. You chose conspiracy over honesty. Now you live with it. Dad, Raul's voice came out broken. Please. The girls, Isabella and Sophia, they're asleep upstairs. They don't understand what's happening. Don't do this to them. Something in his voice almost got to me. Almost. But then I remembered Letitia on that balcony, remembered her shoulders shaking as she cried, and the softness died. You should have thought about your daughters before you conspired against their grandmother. 30 minutes, Raul. Start packing. I watched them go back inside, Raul stumbling, Bianca furious, the Morrisons defeated. Hayes stood beside me looking uncomfortable. That was brutal, Pedro. It needed to be. You know this is permanent, right? Some bridges, once you burn them. The bridge was burned 3 weeks ago when they started plotting. I'm just making it official. 28 minutes later, they emerged. Raul carried 2 suitcases and a duffel bag. Bianca had 3 designer bags that probably contained more shoes than clothes. Richard and Patricia looked like they'd aged 10 years, hunched and defeated. And then I saw Isabella and Sophia, 5 years old and confused, being carried down by Bianca and Patricia. They were in their pajamas, clutching stuffed animals, eyes wide with fear at the police cars and the strange adults in uniforms. Daddy, why are there police? Isabella asked, her voice small. Raul couldn't answer her. He just held her tighter and walked toward their car parked in my driveway. Mommy, I'm scared, Sophia whimpered. It's okay, baby, Bianca said, but her voice was all wrong, tight and angry instead of reassuring. Grandpa's just being mean, but we're leaving now. I felt something crack in my chest watching those little girls, my granddaughters, being carried away crying. But I couldn't back down, not now. They needed to learn that actions have consequences, even if the lesson came too early. The cars loaded up. Raul sat behind the wheel of his Mercedes, staring straight ahead. Bianca got in beside him, turned back to look at me once, and I saw something in her face I hadn't expected. Not anger, defeat, like she'd known all along this would happen. A patrol car escorted them to the city limits. Standard procedure for trespass removal, Hayes explained. Make sure they really leave. When the last car disappeared down the street, I turned to him. Thank you for everything, Daniel. I hope you know what you're doing, Pedro. This is going to create permanent damage. The damage was already there. Now it's just honest. I went back inside my house, legally mine and Letitia's now, protected and secured, and looked around. They'd left a mess, empty glasses on the coffee table, plates with half-eaten food, the remains of their celebration party, their premature victory. I spent the next 2 hours cleaning. Every glass washed and put away, every surface wiped down, every trace of their presence erased. It felt like an exorcism, purging the house of the conspiracy that had infected it. By 9 in the morning, I drove back to the hotel to get Letitia. She was awake, sitting on the balcony with coffee, staring at the marina. It's done, I said. She turned and I saw the question in her eyes. They're gone? Gone. The house is secured. Locks changed, security system installed. They can't get back in even if they tried. And Raul knows everything. Knows. The disinheritance, the trust. All of it. She nodded slowly, then started crying again. But this time it was different. Relief mixed with grief, like she'd been holding something heavy for so long that letting go hurt almost as much as carrying it. Come on, I said, taking her hand. Let's go home. The messages started on Christmas Day. My phone buzzed constantly, text after text, voicemail after voicemail. I ignored them all, but I read them. I needed to see what they'd say, how they'd try to manipulate now that their plan had failed. From Raul. Dad, please, can we talk? I made a mistake, a terrible mistake. Please just call me back. From Bianca. This is abuse, Pedro. We're consulting lawyers. You can't disinherit your son for no reason. We'll fight this. From Richard. I understand you're upset, but let's discuss this rationally. Perhaps we can reach some arrangement that benefits everyone. From Patricia. The girls are asking about you and Letitia. They don't understand why Grandpa was so angry. Please don't punish innocent children. Every message went unanswered, but at night, lying in bed next to Letitia, I felt it creeping in. The doubt, the guilt. What if I'd been too harsh? What if there was another way? You're thinking about him, Letitia said in the darkness. How did you know? Because I'm thinking about him too, wondering if we could have handled it differently. I turned to face her. Do you regret what we did? She was quiet for a long moment. I regret that it was necessary. But no, I don't regret protecting us. Pedro, they would have taken everything, and once they had the house, they would have gone after the hotels. It wouldn't have stopped. But he's our son. He was our son. The man who conspired against us. I don't know who that is. I pulled her close, and we lay there in the darkness of our reclaimed home, two people who'd won a battle but weren't sure about the war. 3 months passed. We heard nothing directly from Raul, but information filtered through anyway. The divorce happened fast. Bianca filed in January, and by March, it was done. Raul got custody of the twins on weekends. Bianca took them during the week. The Morrison family had moved to Patricia's sister's place in Brooklyn, all 4 of them crammed into a 2-bedroom apartment. And Raul? Raul was looking for work. Actually looking, for the first time in his adult life. I knew this because Vincent Torres called me in April. Vincent and I went back 20 years. He owned a mid-sized architecture firm in Miami, and we'd worked together on several hotel renovations. Pedro, I need to tell you something. Your son applied for a job at my firm. I sat up straighter in my office chair. Raul applied to work for you? He did. Used his own credentials, didn't mention the family connection. His portfolio is actually impressive. I had no idea he was this talented. What did you tell him? Nothing yet. That's why I'm calling. Do you want me to reject him? If there's bad blood, I don't want to. No. The word came out before I'd fully thought it through. Don't reject him because of me. Look at his work. Judge him fairly. If he's good enough, hire him. If he's not, don't. But Vincent, I need you to do something for me. What? Watch him. Report back. I need to know if he's genuinely trying to change or if this is another angle. You want me to spy on your son? I want you to observe him. There's a difference. Vincent was quiet for a moment. Okay. But Pedro, what if he really is trying? What if he's actually working to be better? Then maybe in a few years we'll talk. But Vincent, I need to see it sustained. Not weeks or months, years. Understood. A week later, Vincent called back. I offered him the position, junior architect starting salary. He cried when I told him. Actually cried, said he couldn't believe someone was giving him a chance. How did he seem? Desperate, grateful, scared, like a man who knows this is his last shot. Good. Keep me updated. What I didn't tell Vincent, what I couldn't tell anyone, was that I'd also made another call to 5 other architecture firms in Miami, sent them a detailed email about Raul's conspiracy, his fraud attempt, his complete lack of professional ethics. I'd blacklisted my own son, but I'd also made sure Vincent's firm never got that email. I'd carved out one path, one single opportunity for Raul to prove himself, and I'd made it hard enough that if he succeeded, if he actually worked and earned his place, it would mean something. It was a test, the first of many. By June, Vincent's reports started coming in regularly. He's punctual, works hard, doesn't complain about grunt work. Then, his designs are genuinely creative. The kid has talent when he applies himself. And finally, Pedro, I think he's actually changing. This isn't an act. He's hungry to prove something. I filed each report away, not ready to respond, not ready to acknowledge that maybe there was hope. But then in August, Vincent called with something different in his voice. Excitement, maybe, or surprise. Pedro, you need to know what just happened. I offered Raul a big project, boutique hotel design for a client in Naples, huge commission, could change his life financially. My pulse quickened. And? He turned it down. What? Well, not exactly turned down. He reviewed the contract and came back with concerns. There was a clause, probably standard for this client, that gave them final approval rights with vague criteria. Raul said he couldn't sign it, said it was predatory, that he needed clearer terms or he'd walk away from the project entirely. I leaned back in my chair, stunned. He chose ethical standards over money? Over a lot of money. Pedro, the old Raul, would have signed anything for that commission. But this Raul, your son looked at that contract and said no. Said he wouldn't compromise his professional integrity, even if it meant losing the opportunity. I sat there in my office, staring at the phone, and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Pride. "Vincent," I said slowly, "tell the client to remove that clause. Give him fair terms. Let's see what he can do." "You sure?" "I'm sure." "And Vincent, send me everything he produces, every design, every detail. I want to see it all." "Will do." After I hung up, I sat there for a long time, thinking about second chances and redemption and whether people could really change. And for the first time since that Christmas Eve, I let myself hope that maybe, just maybe, I hadn't lost my son forever.